Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are from across the globe. If you can hear us and see us okay, type a hi, hello in the chat or type llama and let us know where you're viewing this live stream from. So while we're waiting for others to settle in and join the chat, um, I will be checking if we are all good for the live, making sure we are or we can be seen rather. So let me see if that's all good. Okay, we're live. I can see that now. All right, so now, welcome again, everybody. My name is Kathleen. I'll be your studio host for today, and we are with the one and only Allan Kirk, who will be doing a live demo for us as part of the launch for his course with Etchr Studio. So, for those who don't know Etchr Studio, we are an art learning platform who works with art teachers from across the globe. So, we work with amazing artists such as Allan himself to do amazing classes and courses. And if you want to check out these classes and courses online, that's on our platform, etchrstudio.com. And I can see more people coming in. So we've got hi from California, from Montreal, from Scotland. Catherine, hello. Okay. So while you guys are getting settled in the chat, before we begin, just a few reminders that if you have any questions for Allan, feel free to interrupt us. Trust me, I have the full permission from Allan to interrupt him during his demo. And if you are wondering about the materials that Allan will be using today, that's in the description in this video below. Here is also the reference image that Allan will be using today. And I'll also drop some relevant links here in the chat. So including the course page for Allan Kirk's course. So make sure to stick till the end as well, because we will be doing a giveaway of an Etchr Lab product. So this is really exciting. So if you have, make sure to stick till the end so that you can get a chance to win that. Okay. And without further ado, I'm going to hand the floor to Allan so that he can introduce himself, introduce the course, and what we'll be doing today. So Allan, it's going to be all you.
Thank you. Well, hello everyone and welcome. I'm Allan Kirk. I live in the southwest of France, and I've lived and worked here as an artist for 20 years, well over 20 years. I've drawn and painted all my life, and my wife and I gave up our jobs in England and came out here and did watercolour holidays, which we've retired from now, so I'm just drawing and painting. I've really worked on pen and watercolour for the last 20 years and drawing outside. We live in a lovely historic region, and I love nothing more than to be going out and about outside. And I haven't thought beforehand about a style or anything, but my style has kind of evolved. And I'm quite comfortable now with what I do. I'll give you a couple of sentences on that. It's all based around pen and watercolor. When I do my sketches, I want really to tell two stories. The first story is the sketch of the beautiful place I'm at, and I love architecture, I love buildings, I love villages and towns. The second story is a story of what I'm doing, my sketching. So I like nothing more than my pen lines to be visible at the end. And because they're visible, I want them to have a lot of energy. So my style is developed to be very quick, very loose, and very free. And I've realized, or for me at least, that the most important thing is doing the sketch. Not what you get at the end, actually doing it. And once I recognized that, I freed myself from all the anxiety of worrying, is it right, is it okay? And I enjoy the process. And I never, ever worry about mistakes. So it's one of the big takeaways of my style. Don't worry about mistakes. Don't worry about what's going to come at the end. Stay in the moment and enjoy the process. I've said that I work in pen and watercolour, and drawing's important to me. Not great, precise photographic drawings. I never want to reproduce a photo, but drawing is the skeleton on which my watercolours work. So I've got my drawing, which we'll look at the techniques I use, and then we'll use one of those techniques with a watercolour I've got now, which will show you my my watercolour techniques. And I approach my watercolour in the same way, in more detail later. We put together with Etchr a course of for the next 4 weeks, which really dives deep into my techniques and looks at how tone is important to me. It looks at how warm and cool colours are important. And it looks at how enjoying the process and not producing a photograph, but producing something that feels like the place. Okay, so this is, I'll move to my equipment for drawing. I'll move these ones away. And we'll go to my equipment for drawing. Okay. Really, it's not so much to take out that, it's not so much to take out at all. If you think you're taking out a water pen, and that's a Pentel water pen, fill it with water and squeeze it out in this nylon-headed brush. Actually, that's my fine, I'll get my medium. Then my pens. Pens are important to me. What's important about them is, I think of them in two ways. One way is waterproof. A waterproof pen is key to most of my work. The other way is not waterproof, water soluble. And the Elegant Writer calligraphy pen is that. And when I use that, I can add the water and produce some nice effects, which I'll demonstrate. So throughout my course, there's a distinction between water soluble and waterproof pens. Waterproof pens, none of these are very expensive. They're called fine liners usually, and I don't care which one you use. I'm going to use my Etchr one today, but there's all kinds. There's Tombow monoprint, there's Pitt, there's Micron, there's Edding, many fine liner pens, and they're only a couple of, in my currency, a couple of euros to get them. So I'm going to go out, excuse me, and that's going to be my kit. A book and my pens, and maybe my watercolors as well, but sometimes just my pens. And when I'm with just my pens, it lets me really focus on drawing and tone. And I'm going to demonstrate that now. This isn't our main dem, and what I'm really going to do, I'm just getting a bit of paper, is show you how I use them. Paper's quite important. A general throughout will be use watercolor paper. It doesn't matter if it's rough or fine, or in England we call that knot. And I usually use 300 GSM, or if you're in England, 140 pound. And I find that's fine for it. You will find that, particularly with this technique, different papers behave differently, and you need sometimes to adjust the way you work at it. Okay, I'm going to start this demonstration, this little dem, to show you the value of these pens and the water brush, and how tone is important to me. So I'm going to imagine, and this is my waterproof pen. that I've got an old window. And this is about my speed of drawing. This is coming out of my head. I'm not looking at a window. It's not dissimilar to the one we'll do in the watercolour. I love the little windows. Sometimes you're just walking around and you just see something and you think, that's really beautiful. Just a little window in the medieval villages that are around here. So there, I'm imagining that's probably not quite enough. I'm imagining that this is a window, and it's like a lot of windows I've seen over my time, and the rend around them is kind of quite broken and pitted, and it's lovely. And just to indicate that wood, we'll put a few. Okay, so there's my drawing of the window. And now I'm going to add more.
Allan, will it be, sorry, will it be possible to just quickly show the artwork closer to the camera just so we can see the details on what you've initially drawn?
Yeah.
There we go. And somebody commented while you're doing that, somebody commented how they like the size of the paper. It's not, it's big enough, but it's not intimidatingly big.
That's
so
right.
Which is the perfect size for it. Yeah. Okay.
So
what is the size of the nib that you were using?
That was an 01.
Gotcha.
0.1. I do use quite a few nibs, and sometimes I'm not doing it now, and I'm not doing it throughout my course, but I have a very thick nib, so an 08, or even one called a BR, which is a brush. And I do like to use that, the waterproof one of that as well, but not today. But generally when I'm out, I'm drawing with an 01 and sometimes even a 0.05. This elegant writer, you get them in all kinds of thicknesses. Let's have a look. Let's bring it up. You can see there, that's kind of chiseled and quite thick. Yet it's 2mm fine for a calligraphy pen. I've got a few of them, so I've got 2m fine. Where are we getting that? Is that showing? And that isn't so chiseled. It's a little bit chiseled. And I mentioned the chisel because depending on how you work this technique, it can leave a mark. So for example, if I can't see that, can you? Let me just move that up. You can see there that I've just put a zigzag in. If I then, tissue is quite important for this, get my water brush, you can see my water brush, and what I'm going to do with that, I'm going to squeeze, just drop a bit of water around on that mark, and then run it around. And this is the basis of the tonal technique. Now, when you dab it, for some reason, you get a pinky, lovely pink. The black ink comes out as a greeny, bluey pink. It's just beautiful. I've shown you that because I was very heavy with my zigzag, and it's still there. It hasn't just all dissolved. So I've developed a certain way of attacking a drawing. First thing I do is I go with my pen lines so that if something does stay there, it's not going to be too disastrous. So let's just put some in here. And I've made an assumption here, which I'll come back to. I'm putting some in the windows. And if you notice, I'm putting a line down my left side of the window because I've made an assumption about the light. So you can see I'm using my waterproof lines as a guide to get this on. You can just use this on its own. And sometimes I do. Sometimes I'll use a fountain pen, so I won't have any waterproof lines. But I do like to see the lines at the end. Really do. So that's a start. One of the things I do when I'm out, and outdoor painting is my absolute happiest place, is I'll sit down somewhere and I'll look at my view and I'll decide where the shadows are. And they won't be as big as this, but I'll put in the corner an arrow which shows me the direction of the sun, because an hour later it'll be different, and depending on how long I'm going to be there. But that also gives me an idea of the tonal value of the work, where the shadows are going to be. So I'll get my Pentel water brush. These probably last 5, 6, 7 drawings, depending, but they're really good. And I'm just going to not drop so much now. I'm going to brush and just squeeze the edge of that window. You can do this several times, and eventually the paper's just going to give up and say, I'm not doing this anymore. And it just depends on the paper, where that point comes. If I dab it, I get some lovely pink. So if I hold that up a bit, you can see there that really nice effect. Let's put some shadows there. Let's get some of the render done. That. Let's get as if there's a shadow coming down there. Little bits in here. So and really, all I'm really trying to do here is show you that technique and make the point that you get waterproof and you get water-soluble pens. And I don't care what make it is, how expensive it is. It's important to me, for me, to know how it's going to behave. Is it going to be waterproof? Is it going to be water-soluble? So you can work more into that afterwards. So you can say, well, now I'll add a bit more. And just bring the tone up. So this is about light and about dark. And it's about, in your drawing, where the light is falling, in the drawing. And that's what we're picking out. I love that style. I like to do that in my painting as well. The Impressionist style works on the light. Okay, so just to show you can start to bring the light really in the window. And this imaginary window is just a device for me to show you this technique. So
Lovely. There's been a lot of excitement in the chat about the Elegant Writer ink pen and how it bleeds. So that always, it never fails to amaze us, if I may say.
And I've used, the paper's important in a sense that watercolor paper works best, I think, but you can just try the paper. You can try any paper. If you look at that now, it works on its own as well. Look, it's just kind of moving about and still running around. So that's the technique of the pens. I'm not doing a demonstration on them today because I'm going to cover all my techniques. So remember, I draw and then I paint. And fundamentally, that's how I do it. But I will go back with my drawing at the end. If I use my elegant writer, generally, I don't then add any watercolour. But sometimes I do. I think, oh, I'll add some watercolour to this. But generally, it's a quick way for me in a little book just to get a note of something, a window or something even bigger, a landscape, but just to get a note, just to get a record from my memory. Okay, that paper was actually Hahnemühle bamboo sketch A4, only 105 grams, so quite a thin paper. So you can see that this technique works quite well on thin paper. You can see it mottling up now. You can see it bubbling up the paper, but that'll dry flat. So I'll move that out of the way, and I'll bring. First of all, well, I'll bring this. As I said, I like to go out drawing, and my wife and I were very keen cyclists, and we go on cycling holidays, and we were in the Gers, which is a GERS, which is a department in France, and we were at a campsite, and we went to a place called Flaren Abbey. It was a lovely place, lovely gardens, lovely buildings to look through. And in one of the rooms, there was just this little alcove, and I really loved it. So I did a quick sketch, and then when I got back to the camp, it must have been in 2022, I kind of did a work from my photo and my little sketch to produce just a little bit of a watercolor, and that was that. And that's not a big drawing, but it encapsulates all of my watercolor techniques. They're all there. Nothing's left out. So it's a good thing for us to demonstrate and show how I work. In the workshops, the first workshop is a elegant writer drawing, much more complicated than the one we've done. And it's about tone. And the second workshop is Tillicum Bridge, which is in Vancouver Island, and it's just watercolor, no pens, and it's about watercolor, how it works with the paper. But the theme of it, you would say, is the way you can use warm and cool colors. That's the second workshop, a deep dive into that. The third workshop is a little village around here, and that's about composition. So it's about the idea that we are not reproducing a photograph. You can see in there, I've made that pot blue there. It isn't blue. You are in charge of what you do. I've kind of brightened the colours. And the final workshop brings that all together in a work around a great medieval city that's about an hour from here, Carcassonne, with a lovely castle. So my drawing technique is with my pen. My painting is with watercolor. So I'll talk about my watercolors. There's my palette. It's a plastic palette. It's a Liz Deacon palette. Liz Deacon, and I got it on the internet. I bought it years ago, and I bought it from a site that you probably won't know, but if you're English, you might. If you live in the UK, you might. It was I'll remember it. But if you look for the Liz Deacon palette on the internet, you might find it. It doesn't have to be this palette. What I like about it is deep mixing wells, not so many mixing wells. And when you buy it, these colours, that's just empty. So I fill them from tube. And I tend to use mainly Winsor & Newton artist colour, but it doesn't matter. What I would say is this. I would recommend to anybody use artist colour, whatever brand. There's a difference between artist colour and student's colour. And basically, I think, I'm not an expert on this, but student colours are more synthetic and chemical, and they tend to stain on the paper more. And artist colours, whatever brand, much more come from one or just a few pigments, and they're not as staining. And when you've got remedial work, you really got a chance of doing it, as I'll show you. So this is my palette. It's developed, I think there's 15 colours, not so many. And I never use all 15 in a picture, or hardly ever. I'll use about 5 or 6. So I've got cobalt blue, French ultramarine blue, a Prussian blue, which I like to use for mixing my greens, a cerulean blue, and a cobalt turquoise light. They're my cool colours. I've got I guess you'd call it might be permanent magenta, it might be ultramarine violet, but a very purpley colour. And then I've got, excuse me, cobalt violet. Then I've got get to my warmer colours, burnt umber, raw umber, burnt sienna, raw sienna, alizarin crimson, that's cadmium red, it's cadmium orange, and it's actually Windsor lemon. So they're my colours, and I refresh them sometimes when they're needed. I've refreshed a few for today. Refreshed my raw sienna, my burnt sienna, my French ultramarine, my cobalt blue, and my cobalt black. That's all. I haven't refreshed any of the others. My paper for this demonstration it's a little block, Saunders Waterford. The thing about it is it's 300 GSM, 140 pound, and it's what we call knot, or what you would call fine. And that's one of those blocks. I really like them when you're out because they keep tight. And when you're finished, you just strip off the one below. Like that was my practice yesterday for this. I did a practice yesterday. And when you've done it, you just get a knife in there, cut the corners, and off it comes. And you're left with what you need for today's demo. So I'll let you see my palette. My brushes, number of brushes. I don't paint very big when I'm out, especially. It's a 12, a 10, an 8, a 6, a 4, and a couple of 2 and a 1. But they are what I call riggers. If you look at that, you'll see very long hair. They were developed to do rigging on sailing ship watercolours in the 19th century, I think. Lovely pens. And they're all stable. I don't care what you use, and it's completely up to you. But it's the sizes that are important and the technique. I have another brush. Let me bring that close up to you. Let me find a way to show you that. There we go, down. That's a hog's hair brush. And I bought that with a pack of about 8 in a supermarket from England called Lidl, or Lidl, I don't know how you pronounce it. And it's a very rough hog's hair brush. And I use that at the end of my work. If I've got any remedial, it'll scrub off the paint. Remember I said about artists' colours aren't as staining. So there's my brushes. One of the things with my style is I quite often lose a lot of light because I'm very loose and free, and I don't try to be pedantic and slow and controlled in the way that I put the watercolour on. So in my remedial phase, I might be scrubbing a little bit, and I might be trying to get some light back. And over the course, I'll show you the different ways we do that. But one way, that's rather a big tube, but is to use acrylic paint. I don't know if you can see that in my palette. That's a residue of acrylic. And at the very end, only at the very end, I'll use that, put it on almost neat to get my light back. Another way is to use a gel pen, and I use that as well. There are other ways. Use masking fluid. I don't like to do that. I always seems to make. I always seem to get messy with it. So I think that's all my equipment. Definitely a tissue is needed. And so I'm set for my watercolour. So I've sat myself down somewhere. I've got my nice small little book with me. I've got my pens. I might not have this palette. I might have an even smaller palette with me. But I'm ready to go. And so I get my Etchr pen and I'm looking at what I want to do. The most important part for me is that beginning when I look. Remember, it's not a photograph, so I'm looking and saying, I don't want that there. I don't want that in. That's not going to be yellow. I'm going to move that over there. So I've learned that that's absolutely fine. And I used to be very anxious about that kind of thing, especially when people came up and said, that window's not there, or something like that. But I've learned that what I'm trying to do is tell the story of the place and the story of my doing it and what inspired me to pick on. And we'll see a little bit of that in this sketch. So we've got, let's put my drawing there, and I'll talk about my drawing technique. When I hold my pen, right, I'm holding my pen very loose. I'm not going to press on, apart from anything else. Watercolor paper, you can scratch it. I'm not going to press on. I'm not going to get right down here on my pen, because when I find my fingers down here, I know I'm in trouble. So I'm holding it loose. I'm getting the distance between me and the paper. And I never worry about a mistake. And I have a mantra when I draw, and it's this: keep the pen moving, keep the pen moving, keep the pen moving. I want energy. I want to see that energy in the strokes. I'm not looking for precision. I'm looking for a mood and an atmosphere. I also don't want to think once I'm drawing. I've thought about what I want to do, and then just want to get in and do it and not let my mind interfere. You know how it is. You'll be looking at something and you'll say, well, what's that? Is that? And you try and resolve it. And suddenly you're taken off course on your drawing and you're getting into detail into something. So I try to keep my mind way out. And in all of my drawings, this is a technique I've developed. It's probably not unique or anything, but I start inside and I work outwards. So I'm not starting at the edges and blocking everything in. I start inside and I work outwards. I work quickly, I work energetically. I want my lines to be less than perfect, and I want the energy to show in the lines, to tell that story. So I'm going to start with the top of the window here. So I hope you can see the mark. So you can see there that's quite loose. And my lines are not, I mean, I would never use a ruler or anything like that. And I don't think I've ever drawn a straight line for a long time. And I just keep my pen moving and see the energy in it. I'll just move my palette a bit. I don't want to get it on my sweater or jumper or whatever you call them, wherever you live. And this is from the reference photo, and it's that alcove. I probably called it a window when I finished it. In my head, it's a window, but it was never a window. It was just a little alcove in one room. Beautiful old room. And I don't know, well, I can't put in words what attracted me, but I'm sure that you can see how lovely this little alcove is. I called it a window again.
Absolutely. Alan, after doing the window or the sketch, will it be again possible to lift up the piece so so that we can see all those tiny details.
It will. It will. And please
Awesome.
ask any questions you want while I'm going. I'll try and give you a proper answer, but I'm sure that as you paint yourself, sometimes you think, I have no idea why I'm doing that. So, but if
Yeah.
I know, I'll tell you. So there's a little basket there, and there's a pot here. I don't think I'm going to have it blue in this one. I didn't in my practice. I don't dislike it blue, but I think it's better. It's not. And again, I don't know why. Don't know why I think that. The light on this one is coming from the my right. So in this sketch, I would have put a little arrow at the top which showed where the light was coming from. Remember, keep the pen moving. Don't think. Never worry about mistakes. There's a watercolor artist I like very much, Alvaro Castañer, and he always says, there is no such thing as a mistake. There's only a meant to be. A meant to be.
I like that mentality. It keeps you from being discouraged. Instead of looking at mistakes, you look at or you see it as opportunities, and that's a beautiful thing to see when you're sketching.
It is, and sketching is such a wonderful way to see the world. My wife and I, we go all over, and we always sketching. Well, my wife doesn't sketch, so sometimes I can hear, have you finished yet? She usually goes and hunts out a good restaurant for us when we're out somewhere.
Yeah. Well, that's, I guess, her role to make or find beautiful places for you to get inspired. And your role is probably to capture these beautiful places when you guys are together. So that makes you a perfect couple, and that's very timely. It's Valentine's Day. You, Alan, you're making us pretty much touching here. It's a touching story.
We both met at art college in 1973.
Oh, that is the sweetest. You guys are. Anyway.
This pot here that I'm drawing, it's what's known in France as a cassoulet pot. I can recognize the shape. It's the pot that cassoulet is a very big thing in the southwest, and it's basically a stew, a duck stew, duck sausage. For me, it's horrible, but it's not. They love it. Duck, because I don't eat meat, but duck sausage, pork. It's all packed in goose fat or duck fat, and just packed away, and it kind of becomes a confit. And there's like beans and stew, and they're very, very proud of their castle. Each village, each town. Near us, there's a town called Castelnaudary, and it always claims it was the founder of Castlereagh. So you can see that I've not done much thinking, I've just done a bit of looking. It's almost like you want the pen, you want the image to go into your eye, through your arm, and onto the page without you thinking, what's that? When I start thinking, what's that, I get in trouble. I think that's probably good enough. So I might come back with a drawing, but for now, let's have a look. You can see there that I've got the pen drawing. 01 pen, Saunders Waterford, £140, 300 GSM, fine or not paper, so it's got a bit of a tooth and a groove on it. So we'll bring our palette back, show you my technique. My watercolour technique is basically, it's not doing a jigsaw, so I'm not going to do that bit, then move on to that bit, then move on to that bit. I'm going to put a wash all over it, not caring, not controlled. When that dries, I'll put a second wash on, and then a third wash, and then what I call my finalising, or Joseph Zabukvich, another great watercolour painter, calls it adding the jewellery. I've got a hairdryer with me, so we're not going to have to sit and wait for it to dry. Let me get my water. I'll show you my water. Big yogurt tub for my water. I'll put it over here. And let me get my brushes. So remember, I'm going to do 3 washes. And the brushes will get progressively smaller, and the control over the picture will get more and more pronounced as we go through. So the first brush, just a 12 table brush, bit of water, no paint, over we go. Well, looks like some paint on it. That doesn't matter, meant to be. And it doesn't matter if you don't cover every bit, it doesn't matter. And I don't want this dry when I put the paint on. I want it to do that, so I put that in first, give it a chance to soak into the paper. Because you know, a lot of watercolour, well, all watercolour, you are not in control. You just give the paint and the water and the paper, you introduce them to each other, and off they go. So, my first mixing. Cobalt blue. Cobalt violet. Refresh this one, it's nearly dried. It's only an hour and a half ago. Burnt sienna. And raw sienna. For this first wash, I'm not at this stage going to mix anything in the palette. Another really important.
Before we add in the colors, just to confirm, the paper or the water on the paper, is that like a moist kind of texture, or is it saturated?
It's quite saturated. Let's roll it up. You can see. Can you see?
There you go. Yeah.
There's actually water standing on it, and that's how I like it, really. So now, one of the most important aspects of my technique of watercolour is, whenever I can, I want to mix on the paper, not in the palette. I mean, I will mix in the palette, but I love the mixing to take place on the paper. And in the first wash, it's really kind of quite important. So as I go back, I'll just get a bit more of the blue. Why am I getting the blue? I haven't got any scan. I will get some blue, but not yet. As I go back, I'll get a bit more of the raw sienna. And I'll just throw some raw sienna on. You see, I'm not taking care to, I'm not bothered at all about the drawing lines. Do you notice? And I'm not going to the edges. I like a kind of a jagged edge of things. And I haven't put it everywhere. That's raw sienna, lovely transparent, earthy yellowy colour. And then I'll get some cobalt violet and just throw that in there. This is the mixing on the paper. I'll get a little bit of the blue and just drop it in. And let's go over there. And for your first wash, that's enough. Now, that paper will go on moving that paint around for a very long time. We haven't got that long time. And I would never do this normally, but I'm just going to lift up some of it and then get my hairdryer on. If I don't lift it up, it'll blow all over. So I don't know, Kathleen, you might want to mute me while I put the hairdryer on.
Okay. Let me know when you will begin so I can mute.
Right. I'll begin when I work out how to use it.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Okay, I'll mute you right now. There we go. All right, so while Allan is doing that, for the newcomers, welcome. So the reference photo again is in the chat. We're doing this in for the live demonstration. So Allan is using the blow dryer, but if you're doing this in real time, you probably might need more time, but that is okay. And again, just a quick recap, this is pretty much the encapsulation of what Allan will be teaching in his 4-part course with Etchr Studio. So if you want to learn more about that, I'm going to be dropping the link here in the chat. And again, if you have any questions for Allan at the end of this class, feel free to drop them here as well. Just type them in all capital letters, say, for example, question. Allan, if I don't have this kind of material, do you recommend anything else for the course, something like that? Feel free to ask that, or you can ask any questions related to the course itself, about the course structure, how many sessions there are, things like that, so we can do a quick recap about it later on. Okay. And I see a lot of comments in the chat saying dreamy, beautiful, and everybody's falling in love with Cobalt Violet, and I can see why. Let us know in the chat, what is your most commonly used watercolor paints in your palette? Or what is your favorite watercolor paint? That is also interesting to know. Yeah, and make sure to stick till the end because we will be doing a giveaway. So make sure you do not miss that. I, of course, would not want you to miss that. We're be giving away a postcard, Etchr Lab postcard. So that is exciting. And now back to Allan.
Right. Normally, I would let that dry. And if I'm not in a cafe when I'm out painting, I'd probably go to a cafe for the first wash, although if it's very hot, I won't have much time. I'm going to bring it up close. And you can see that it's dried back much lighter. I've still got my pen lines, and it's done the mixing on the paper. Look, it's just I think it's wonderful the way it all mixes together. So that was a number 12 brush. Probably, well, I won't use that again. And I'm going to go down to, am I going to go down to number 8? I will. I'm going to add some colours now. So I'm going to add some into the palette, some burnt umber. So that's a lovely brown. You know, if you've got a different palette to this technique will work as well. You don't need to go out and buy those exact colours. And with this number 8 brush, I'm going to start to be a bit more controlled, and my pigment is a little bit stronger. So there's more pigment to water than there was for the first wash. In the first wash, all very wet. Now I'm getting a little bit controlled. Not too much. A bit of burnt umber on the pot. And let's get some of the same colours that we've got in there. So a bit of cobalt violet and go around some of the marks. A bit of cobalt violet, go around some of the marks. Bring some a bit thicker raw sienna in there. A little bit of blue. And sometimes when you put one on, like that bit there, just get some water and spread. And in this second wash, if you can get the strokes that you're putting on to connect with ones that are already there, and that way you get the paper and the paint to work together again and to mix. not addressing any of the shadows as yet. And this is my second wash. Now I need a green, and I normally, well, I don't have a green in my palette. And that's on purpose, it's not, I haven't just forgot. And what I do is, I usually mix them, generally from Prussian blue and the Windsor lemon yellow. And let's just put some green in there, just to, I'm going to get rid of my 8 brush now, still on the second wash. I'm going to go down to, I might even go down to my 4. Shall I try my 6 first? I try, in my head, I say to myself, stay with as big a brush as you can, for as long as you can. So let's create a mix now. You know, we mix on the paper, but we also can mix in the palette. So this is raw sienna and cobalt violet. I'll just stick a little bit of the blue in, and let's think about some of these positions that we've got here. And remember where the sun is, so we're going to start to get some shadows. And I'm going to mix the dark shadows. We'll start and get one on now. So to get a dark shadow, I'm going to use burnt umber. Lovely, lovely brown. Burnt umber. And a little bit French ultramarine. And those two, burnt umber and ultramarine, mix the darkest colours I can mix in my palette. And let's, on top of the already wet alcohol, I guess that's the word for it. Add some more to make that a bit dark. And let's think about some dark being under there and being there. So you can see I'm working quickly, trying not to think. I'm working around the page, and it's not like doing a jigsaw. That's our second wash. And just drag that away. And you can see I've got ragged edges. And so we're bringing the picture through 3 washes and then finalizing from light to dark. And we're gradually focusing in on the dark parts and where the darkest tones are, but we're doing it in colour. And Alvaro Castagnier, who I've already mentioned, a watercolour artist I like very much, he always says, and it's so true, and I always, whenever I do the workshops, I always say this: you get the light when you paint the dark. And the thing about this style is you've got to be a bit restrained. You've got to say, don't go too dark, don't too soon. Conscious, I need to just get a wriggle on a bit. So I'm going to put the hairdryer on that again, and that's the second wash. 8 and 6 brush, and stronger pigment, and a little bit of mixing in the palette. Different to the first wash, not very different. So I'm going to put the hairdryer on, Kathleen.
Okay, and I will mute you now. There we go. All right, you're all good. All right, and while Allan is doing that, I have started reserving questions for the Q&A at the end. Feel free to type your questions in the chat by typing them in all capital letters so I can see them easily. And yeah, these are pretty interesting questions. We've got questions about hair dryers. What does it do with your watercolor papers? With the randomness of how Allan places his colors, that's something that we can probably ask Allan, and probably gives you an idea what he will talk about in the course, or what he will talk about in the course. So let's see. Okay, these are pretty interesting conversations in the chat. Oh, lovely question. questions rather. Okay, I think Alan is done. Let me just unmute Alan. There we go.
Let me bring that up and show you now how it's looking. And you'll notice that it dries back flat. Good papers always dry back flat. Even, I mean, it is down at the edges, but even if it wasn't, good papers will dry back flat. That's good. So now I'm going to go down to a number 4 brush and our 2 riggers. So let's have a look at them. There's my number 4, and there's my 2, and my number 1 rigger. So I'm getting really into detail now. My pigment's going to get much stronger, much darker. And I'm looking at details. So let's get some burnt sienna, thick pigment, and get some of those red, browny bricks that are showing. And let's go up here and get it up here as well. You always, well, I don't know, but there's always a tendency to think, do more there, do more on that brick. And in this style, avoid it. Try and say no, hold your nerve, it'll come together, even if it's with the last stroke that you put on. It'll all start to make some sense. And let's get a bit of burnt umber, a little bit of burnt sienna in it. And let's put this pot in this colour. And also this. And this is, I'm doing the basket now. And I know I'm going to lose the light in my basket. But I don't mind, because I'm going to get it back at the very end. Okay, so let's just put a little bit of raw sienna in that. I don't know why I did that. That's just something I wanted to do. So now I'll go along and I'll increase the darkness in the window. This is my 3rd wash. Sometimes you go to 4 washes. It's a rule of thumb. But if you do a lot more than that, you end up with, I think you'll probably know this too, what I call mud. You'll end up with something that just looks like it's mud. And you want to avoid that. You want to keep the transparency, keep the light. Okay, I'm going to need a real dark now. Darkest that I can mix, remember, ultramarine and burnt umber. In my workshops, we really do a deep dive with lovely more architecture pictures, and it's lovely. But the technique I'm showing you is exactly the same. So now that dark is like a shadow, and it comes along and it's around here, and it's a shadow. And the back of the wicker basket thing is in that shadow. And then get that dark again. It's nearly black, isn't it? That dark? It's amazing. Ultramarine and burnt umber. And that's like a shadow, but it comes just, say, to the top of that. And let's put some in there. Let's get some burnt umber there. And you can, in these shadows, remember it's made up of ultramarine and burnt umber. Sometimes you just get a bit of burnt umber, drop it in, and you just get brown bits in, and drop it in while it's wet. Bit of ultramarine, drop it in, drop it in. Doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason in it, but just kind of, I don't know, it just kind of seems nice. So ultramarine around the top of the pot. Pot's looking a bit sorry for itself. I know it's a cassoulet pot. I bet a Frenchman wouldn't. And I need a grey now, so I'm going to mix it in the blue. Cobalt violet. Cobalt blue. That's kind of a light grey, and let's just add a bit of burnt sienna in. Got too much violet in there, I need a bit more blue. Now I've got too much blue, so you end up chasing your tail. There we go, getting to the grey now. And I've forgotten why I needed it. Oh yeah.
This is turning out really amazing, and to think that we have done it in less than an hour or like half an hour still. This is really mind-blowing for everybody. So yeah, if you have any questions, you guys, just for the Q&A, feel free to reserve them in the chat, and I will list them down so that we can ask them to Allan later on. Yeah.
All right, let's get a bit of cad orange. Just put it over there because we've got the space, and a bit burnt sienna with it, just to make a nice warm red. Warm and cool colours are important. Blues are cool, earth colours are warm. Bit of raw sienna. Let's just create a bit of wet in there. Raw sienna.
So Allan, regarding your choices of colors, is this something that you will also be talking about in the course, apart from the value of contrasts when it comes to colors? Because
they've developed over many years, and there is kind of a logic in what I do, and I'll trace the development of them. So, for example, why I use raw sienna and not Naples yellow. And all those things were decisions I've made over time that suit this style. That's a bit dark, but it'll dry lighter. That suit this style of working. I think for the final wash, this is good, and I'm gonna then do the jewelry. Perhaps a little bit of yellow though on the plant. Plant's not looking too healthy at the minute, but it will. It will in the end. Right, no, don't overdo it. Right, I'm just going to put the hairdryer on that so I can get this done, and then we're into the final bit.
Okay. Right, and we will be muting Allan right now. There we go. Okay, we've got some lovely questions in the chat. So do know that I'm reserving them here. And yes, regarding the questions about his color choices, how he came up with the palette that he has at the moment, he is presenting to you right now. Allan will be talking about those in detail during his course again, so that you can probably understand why this system he has here. So I think Allan is done.
I am.
Let me unmute. There we go.
Let me show you up close now. So it just needs what I call the finalizing. And I'm just going to get myself a little bit of acrylic paint, white acrylic. Doesn't matter what brand you use. This just happens to be Liquitex Heavy Body. you just need some white opaque acrylic. You could use gouache. I understand gouache isn't as opaque as it could be. And I'll also show you how the gel pen works. So I'll do the gel pen first, and I'll add some highlights. Can you see the highlights appearing on the top of that?
Yeah, a little bit. There we go.
And the alternative to that is to rig a brush almost neat. The brush is a bit wet, but almost neat acrylic paint. Bringing in the highlights. And let's have some white flowers. So we got that will just pop against the dark of the board. Now I am going to use the pen again because it's when I did my practice and when I did the original, it's good for the basket. So
You've got questions piling up, if I may say, Alan, for later's Q&A as well. I think we'd love to for you to expound more on those concepts later on. So, yeah, get ready to answer these questions.
right. Just a few highlights with the pen. See that there? At your focal point, you've got your lightest lights and your darkest darks, and they pop. I'm going to get my black pen again. Where's it gone? Where's my Etchr pen? There it is. I'm going to do when I hold it close, you'll see the effect of these. I'm going to go add some more pen, especially on the basket. And remember, you know, the worst thing now is to overdo it. Think, oh, I'll just get that bit right, or I'll just get that bit right. You don't need to get anything right. You look at it and you think, wow, I remember that. I remember how I felt when I saw it. I don't know why. When you look at something like this, you think, oh, wow. But you do. Isn't that nice? And I guess that's a human thing because they've made it like that. So they know.
Alan, just to confirm real quick, the white pen you applied, that was on a dry paper already, right?
Yes, I've dried the paper. Yes, only I'm working now on dried paper.
Gotcha.
And I'm being as precise as I get.
Do you have any tips?
Sorry?
Sorry. Do you have any tips for people who struggle with making the white pen stand out for their highlights, or should they just switch to another medium to, bring out the highlights even more?
I know some of the gel pens I've bought have been terrible, and I use a Uniball Signo pen, but they don't last that long, and so that's why I've taken to doing the acrylic, because that tube should last me a while. So I would say if you really want them to stand out, just go for acrylic. So I'll get a bit more acrylic here and show you what I mean. Where can I do it? Where do I need some light? Where do I need some light? Just a little bit on there. And when I hold it up, you'll see that. And you get raw, neat bits of acrylic, and you think to yourself, well, I don't care about that. Right, I'm still finalising, nearly done. Otherwise, I'm just going to put that one stroke on that kills the whole thing. You know, when you just think, I've gone too far. Let's just create some darks up here where the render's broken away and there's the clay bricks behind it. And let's perhaps straighten that up a bit. Straighten that up a bit. Some darks there. And now, I don't know if we should do this, but I will, as well as the white flowers, I'll stick some red ones in, just to create do I need just to, whoops, see I've spilled some there, and that's meant to be. And that one wasn't meant to be. Cheated there. Right. I think I would stop now completely. Well, I am stopping. But what I would say is, I might look at it tomorrow and think, do something else, but I try to resist. I say to myself, that's what you've done. Sign it. I'll hold it up close so that you can see the looseness. And you see how the highlights come out on the pen. And what you want, it's a device really, you want to get light against dark, warm against cool. And you've got a little record of that lovely alcove or window or whatever it is. Okay, have you got questions then?
Yeah, we have a lot of questions. Let me just bring us back so that you guys can see Allan and his works. So let us see if we can do that right here. And we're back. Oops, not me. There we go. All right, so let us delve into the wonderful questions. First of all, we are so in love with this piece that you have done in, I think, less than an hour, if I'm right. Yeah. Yeah, so if Allan can do it, you guys can definitely do it as well. So let's see. Let's start with the Q&A first. Starting with, can you draw or use colored pencil over this finished piece? Is that something that you do or would not normally do?
Not colored pencil, but I do use, my fine liners. I do have a red one, a green one, an orange one, and I do go in with that and add things in. And especially if I've decided I want some sort of sign in, like parking or road sign, I do use a pen, and I do carry with me colored pens.
Gotcha. Well, that sounds interesting. That's another art material we can explore. So that is interesting. We've got a next question. May I ask, when you said you normally don't use hair dryer, I think the people would, the students here would like to explore on what hair dryer does to the painting and why you don't normally use it.
Right. This might be rubbish, right? This might not be true, but in my head, a hairdryer fixes the painting at that point. And I think, especially with Saunders Waterford paper, different papers are different. I think it needs longer to finish working. You see, some papers, you've got two colours, and they come together, and they come together, and they mix, and they stop. And I found that Arch paper and Saunders Waterford paper, they come together. You go and pour yourself a cup of tea and you come back and they've done more. So it's an anecdotal thing. It's not scientifically proved, but I think the hairdryer fixes it, where if you don't fix it, you're going to get more from the work that the paint and the paper and the water will do. That's my story.
Gotcha. Well, that is definitely valid, and we definitely can see a significant difference between using a hair dryer compared to not using one. So you guys can probably experiment on that one and see for yourself. Um, let's see. Bear with me because these questions have been buried in the chat. All right, so James was asking, can you use this technique in a sketchbook? So I guess the question is more on where you normally do your paintings. Is it in a loose sheet or more on a sketchbook?
This is the one I
There we
finished
go.
just at the end of last year. So that
Oh,
was
gorgeous.
that was last January in Barcelona from the cafe in Barcelona, and it's exactly this technique. That's a little restaurant, sort of little square near us. So that was when we went to Lisbon in February. So polio. So yes, that's my favourite in this book. We had our lunch in that restaurant, and I was sat over here, and the restaurant owner saw me, and when I went in, he took the book off me and took it round everybody because I'd done it there.
Oh, well, if I was the owner, I definitely would be proud to show it to everybody too.
Well, yes,
This is gorgeous.
the technique I've shown you, I use it when I'm out sketching. I use it in my studio. I use it all the time, and it's. I've settled on this technique, and sometimes I think, you've got to try something else because I love my pens, and I'm thinking waterproof, water soluble, water brush. I love my style of painting, and I'll talk about how that style developed and the people I looked at, where that wash style came from, the people I liked, and all of it. None of it is, if you like, original. It's my take on people that have come before, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. This is might be a bit pretentious, but Picasso said, "Poor artists copy, great artists steal," and I think I like that because I think, oh, look at the way he's done that. I won't copy his picture, but I love the way he's done that. And I tell you what's a great source of inspiration: Instagram. I'm on Instagram and I follow people on Instagram. And a few months ago, somebody who works like this had a beautiful white waterfall, and I said, "How did you get that waterfall?" And they used, I think it's Molotow 1-4 brushes. Paint sticks. And I've got some of them, and I love the big, thick paint sticks. So I'm always looking for something. And if you're on Instagram in an art community, it's such a warm, inspirational kind of support for each other. Okay.
Right. Thank you so much. And I'm just checking to see if your Instagram is flashing on a screen. So if you guys would want to follow Allan or post your works, if you followed along today, feel free to do that as well. Let's see. All right, and we have a question in the chat. I think I might have missed it, but oh, there we go. Do you have beginner steps for first urban sketchers, or probably just tips for beginners who would like to try this kind of technique? Before Allan answers that question, I will be dropping the link to a YouTube demo that he did with Etchr as well before, which talks about the water soluble and waterproof pens and their possibilities as well. So you might want to start with that, but I'll leave it to Allan so he can also talk about it more.
I would say something like the drawing we've just done, using the techniques in the workshop on some of them fairly straightforward, some of them a little bit more complex, a little bit deeper, but something like this, I would call that a beginner. So yes, I do. And when I teach, things will progress, as you'll see on the workshops. Start off fairly easy in the drawing so that the technique becomes kind of understood, and then we get deeper. So I don't kind of say, I don't have a course like the bit I did at the first with the window. I don't have a I've done it with workshops, but I don't have a course that says these pens, look how this works, look how that works, look what this does, look what this paper does. So, but I think whatever level you're at, these techniques could be applicable if you're interested. I mean, a lot of people have taught a lot of people over the last 20 years, beautiful artists, and some of them are very precise. There was a couple of old architects came, very precise. They could only take so much from me. I'm not. Yet what they did was beautiful.
Oh, I was muted. I'm sorry. Yeah, I think that does. Thank you so much. All right. Let's see. I have a couple of people starting wonderful conversations in the chat. Thank you so much, everyone, for being so active and enthusiastic here. All right. You said something about how many layers you find useful. Could you expound more on that, or is that something that you'll talk about during the course?
It is something we talk about during the course, but it seems simple, 1 layer, 2 layer, 3 layer, but you get to know how light things are, and you learn only through doing it to restrain yourself from completing things before you have to. And sometimes if you just gauge it wrong, the thing's far too light at the end and you need to do another layer. And you can get away with a 4th layer and even a 5th layer, depending on what you've gone. But eventually, things will start just turning very opaque and you'll lose this paper. See the transparency in it, and you lose that. And I don't like that. I always say when I'm mixing, I can mix 2 colours, perfect. I can mix 3 colours, super. If I start mixing more than 3 colours in there, I think I just end up with a sludge. So I would say restraint, and it's not easy. So in my technique, don't go too soon. Light, 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 and then dark bits just where they're needed. Just where they're needed.
Okay, that is, I definitely agree with you. That's got to be a challenge, especially if you want to see results right away, but slowly and surely does the trick. And Alan will be doing all of these with you together in real time during the course. So, all right, let's see. Okay, we've got interesting questions about your decisions about colors, how you came up with your palette. But like you've mentioned earlier, this is something that you'll talk about in a course, but probably your gray mixes. I think that's something that interests everybody. Do you have like candidate colors for, easy gray mixes, your convenience color, if we may say?
Yeah, and it was the grey I mixed, really. I like cobalt violet, maybe cobalt blue, with just a little bit of burnt sienna in. And sometimes I like cobalt turquoise light with cobalt violet. That makes a nice, lovely grey. I mean, there's a lot more to it, but basically, I started out with a palette that an artist called David Curtis in England had. And I got from him cobalt violet. And over the years, my palette evolved. My greens came from an old artist called Fletcher Watson, who never had a green in his palette. And he always mixed. And he mixed, if you look at his work, he mixed lovely greens. So it's evolved. You don't sit down and go, right, I have to have my palette right next week to do it. it just changes and changes and changes and changes. Cerulean blue is probably the last colour I've put in, and that might have been in the last 10 years. So, and I do actually cadmium red light, that's fairly new, and the alizarin, kind of change between alizarin, rose madder, permanent rose. So I'm always altering a bit, but I mean, it's just lovely to do. But
Yeah.
you do find out by experimentation, but you can learn from what's gone before.
Awesome. Well, we're looking forward to there we go. Beth just took the words out of my mouth. She mentioned can't wait or looking forward to the class/course where we'll talk about this more in detail. So we will be seeing you there. All right, let's see. All right. So it was still on the topic of colors. Do you pick your colors intuitively or I guess again there is a specific class dedicated for that, but yeah. Let us
I'll
know.
talk
Is
about
it an
that.
intuitive style?
I will. I'll talk about that as we go through. Some of them I pick because they have a transparency, but basically I love the colours that I've got, and some colours I don't like, and I don't know why, but yeah, I love them. I love. I tell you what, I really like raw sienna and cobalt violet together. I think it's just beautiful. It reminds me of, I don't know if you have these everywhere in the world, but when we were kids, we used to get pear drops, little hard boiled sweets, and they were just like
Oh,
probably not known everywhere.
well, that is interesting that there is that nostalgic feel to it, and I think Cobalt Violet is a fan favorite based on the chat's conversation earlier. So that we definitely can agree with that. Awesome. Let's see. All right, so we have this comment earlier, which I think I've lost, but she mentioned how the ink isn't the star of the show in your pieces, which is something that is unique, I guess, for most of us. And within that, with that comment, I guess, do you ever lose your original lines in the color stage and find yourself lost?
No, not with a transparent watercolor. I haven't. No, I haven't. But I would say this: if I was lost, it was meant to be. I wouldn't worry about it. I'd just keep going. But no,
Gotcha, that is very reassuring.
my lines are kind of very visible, and you can
Yeah.
see it. It's a very light, transparent watercolor where we've hit the darks just where we need them. I suppose that line under there might be missing. I've never thought about that, but I don't know.
Yeah, and that's probably the reason why artists enjoy doing the same piece over and over again because you can't do the exact same artwork,
That's
exactly
right.
the same as the others. Yeah, it all has a different story.
Oh, so there's my practice.
There we go.
Very different from that.
Yeah.
Started that one yesterday when Kathleen and I were setting up the thing technically. So,
I didn't know you continued doing that. Yeah, that is so cool. All right, we see a lot of questions or comments rather. Love Alan's approach. Question preferred brands. Do you want to have a quick run through about your preferred brands when it comes to
yeah,
your setup, Alan? Yep.
I do. I would. As far as the pens go, fine liners, they're all the same. Anyone's as good as another. As long as it's waterproof, it's fine. No problem. I sometimes get it in my head that my Tombow mono drawing, I've got it in my head at the moment, that my Tombow mono drawing pen somehow better, but it isn't. It's just in my head. And I've got a full set of my Etchr ones. So I've got from 01 through to brush, and I'll take a few of them out with me as well when I go. And the Micron, all the same. Brushes, well, I never buy expensive brushes, and I like sable. And I think if I had to choose, I'd choose sable. So I buy cheap sables. And these are relatively cheap sables. And there's nothing wrong with synthetic, like the two artists that I've mentioned most, Alvaro Castanier and Joseph Buckrich, both use synthetic brushes. Nothing wrong with it. It's just, that's a personal preference. A palette, I just want something with deeper swells and that I can fill myself. This fits the bill. And my paints, I would say, don't worry about the brand, but if you can, get artist's quality, not student quality. My brand, I bet, every one of them might be Winsor Newton. Every one. So I generally buy Winsor and Newton artist quality watercolours. That's it, I think. Or paper. Ooh.
Yeah.
I like lots of papers. I like the Saunders Waterford. I like that paper. I like Arch. I love Bockingford. They're all different prices. And in general, you would get a good result. Well, you'd get a good result on all of them for this. But as you get more and more into it, you start to think that, for example, I think Saunders Waterford mixes, and so does Arch, more than Bockingford. I think Bockingford will go mix. Sorry, I'm trying to show it. And then mix and stop. Stops quickly. And in a sense, I would say, sometimes I think I've made these up and they're rubbish, but this is in my head. If I'm doing something that is misty mixes and all in together, Arch and Saunders Waterford are perfect. If you're doing something lively, like a market scene, Bockingford, you don't want it to just all merge too much together. You want to keep the vibrancy in the colours more. And again, these are things that I think, and they comfort me when I'm working, that's all.
Gotcha. Thank you so much for sharing your preferences. There we go. And hopefully that helps you be more clarified about, Allan's choices when it comes to art materials. Let's see. All right, I think that is pretty much most of the questions in the chat. So for now, we will be doing the giveaway. So this is really exciting. So apart from the wonderful news about the launch of Allan's course, this is again a 4-part course. So this is going to run in 4 weeks. So there's going to be 4 classes where we'll be talking about different lessons. So like Allan mentioned earlier, and for the last session, you guys will be doing one final piece where it incorporates all of the lessons you've learned in sessions 1 to 3. So that is pretty much exciting. And apart from that, there will be a live feedback session at the end of the course, which is such a wonderful opportunity. And like we always say, feedback is just an amazing gift that we can get. And by saying that, you guys get the opportunity to submit a work, an artwork or a piece you have done from Allan Kirk's course, and he will be able to give his feedback through your, of course, constructive feedback with your works. So that is one of the most exciting things I'm looking forward to actually in this course. So, all right. And let's see. Thank you for the demo. Okay, a lot of wonderful comments. So with that being said, we will proceed with the giveaway because you guys have been super great in the chat. you guys get a prize. So the mechanics for this giveaway is real quick. What you will be winning is an Etchr Lab postcards. So these are wonderful postcards that you can paint on, so you can practice on. And after you've painted something on it, you probably can give it away through to your friends. So that's super fun. Let's see. The mechanics is I have written down a number here on this piece of paper. There we go. You can see that. And I've written a number from 1. Do not type anything yet, but I've written down a number here. So what I want you to do is when I type go in the chat, type in one number which you think I've written down here. And when I say stop, all of the comments or chats that will be there after that word stop will be disregarded. So I will be seeing it through my screen. So yeah, so this number is between 1 to 50, and I will give you 15 seconds for you to type that in, to type in your answer. So number is 1 to 50, and feel free to type your numbers after I type the word go. In 3, 2, 1. There we go. All right, so everything that is here. Okay, I have a timer set. 3, 2, 1. Okay, and I will patiently comb through these comments here. While Alan, do you have like any final thoughts while I try to see if anyone got the number I got here and who is closest to it? Do you have any final thoughts or anything you'd like? Yeah.
I'll talk about the elegant writer pen and the watercolor.
Yes.
If you went into a shop and said, I want a pen that will work with this watercolor paper when I put the waterbrush on, they're not made for that. It works with many different papers, but I'd say this to you. Try different papers, see which one you think is best, see how light you've got to be with your touch. And I guess I'm warning you that it'll be, if you did it on a drawing paper, it works and it works beautifully, but it'll be different. So when you get your pen and your waterbrush, just find as many different papers as you can and try it out and try different strengths, like little bits, and see how many times you can go back and still put some on and paint will still rub around. Because usually it's about 3 or 4, and even not that on some, and the paper says, sorry, I'm not doing anything else with that. So just try them.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. All right, and I think I see a winner. I see their name here, but before I announce the winner, of course, I need to open this paper up so you guys can see what I've written down. Bear with me because I've lost the name again. This is, oh my gosh. Okay, I think I've lost the name here, but I can see the name here on my other screen. There we go. Okay, so let me just unfold that real quick, and the lucky number is, I don't know if you can you see that? 50! There we go. And the first person who got it is Calliope Nikitas. So Calliope, if you can see what I have right here, congratulations, you have won an Etchr Lab postcards. So let me just, I can't actually, I'll just type it in the chat. So if you can kindly reach us via hello@etchrstudio.com and indicate that you were the winner for this giveaway. We'll pretty much assist you with shipping out your prize. So I hope you get to Your chat doesn't line up. I hope you get to enjoy this Etchr Lab postcards, and if you are, and I hope you will be joining Allan Kirk's course. I hope you get to use this and send out your pieces to your friends and family. So, um, all right. So that pretty much concludes our session for today. So I hope you guys I hope we will be seeing you on Allan Kirk's course, which will start next week, every Tuesdays. So that's February 27th, and so on and so forth. So looking forward to seeing you there. All right. Any final words? Any final thoughts, Alan? Inspirational messages before we sadly have to close the session?
No, that's all right. But I would just say to everybody, thank you for still being here, and just keep painting. Just do as much as you can. And never worry.
Gotcha. Thank you so much, Alan. And with that being said, thank you so much again, everybody, for being so happy and enthusiastic in the chat. Again, my name is Kathleen, and I will be looking forward to seeing most of you in a course. And until next time, everybody, make more art. Bye for
Thank you.
now.
Bye.